Oh, come on, bienvenue. Welcome to another Portfolio Executive Podcast. As usual, I'm joined by my rhythm pal, Valerie Merrill, or Learning Development Specialist. And today's special guest is Rachael Wheatley, who is a Marketing and Business Development Specialist. Our focus, really, in general, is to talk about ways in which being a member of the Portfolio Executive and being a fractional expert can help make businesses run better, perhaps open up corridors for them that have been hitherto blocked. And today's topic is no exception to that. Rachel, since you're leading the throw, would you care to tell us what today's topic is?
So today's topic is all about short-term profits versus long-term purpose.
All right. Well, Valerie, what does that mean to you?
Well, I guess it means creating a quick profit or a quick turnaround on something versus the sustained, more strategic value and long term growth.
Right. So obviously, Rachel, you've come from many years' experience in doing this. So you've seen this firsthand. And I suspect you've seen the wrong way and the right way.
I have indeed, yes. I mean, I think we've seen it a lot over the last few years, but I suspect it's always been there. In marketing and sales, there seems to be an obsession with quick wins. Magic wands. We need revenue now in the next quarter, but I think most sensible business owners also recognize the need to look to the long term too. And I think that sometimes is the real tension between marketing and sales, because sales often has a short term focus. They're thinking about the next quarter or the next 6 months. Marketing necessarily, yes, it does have that short term focus, because, of course, a lot of what we do is put in place that support for sales in the short term, but it necessarily has a long term time horizon. And I think that is often at the root of the tension between marketing and sales functions.
Um, I mean, you wrote an article recently on LinkedIn, which I found it fascinating because I've worked both in corporate and out of corporate. And you talk about leadership bringing clarity. What does lack of clarity usually look like to you when you walk into a business?
Yeah, so it's interesting. It can be a number of things. I think a symptom might be there are lots of kind of random marketing activities, but if you were asked, maybe even somebody in the marketing team, but other people as well, say, well, why are we doing this? They'd struggle to answer the question, because those activities are not necessarily linked to a particular purpose. They're not there to do something. And I think other things are, if you talk to people about, well, what is it that we sell? I mean, it sounds such an obvious question, but if you go around the business and they say lots of different things,
Right.
that would demonstrate a real lack of clarity. Similarly, who are our target market? A lack of clarity, you'd see that in, well, we want to sell to everyone, or there is just not, and no specificity to you couldn't talk to somebody about, well, our best clients are these kinds of people in these kind of organizations in this role with this need. So that's kind of some of the things that would indicate a lack of clarity.
I mean, we already talked in the green room how both you and Merrill have a sort of an overlap in what you do. Val, you must have seen some of this yourself. You go to a company to try and help them put together their learning and development, and you realize they don't really know what they do.
Well, sometimes they don't know what they want, but they know or they believe that they have a training need, like with Blue Green Learning, which is Rachel's company, and so you have this prerequisite. You're there and you're to discuss needs, but actually they don't know really what they want. In Rachel's case, the marketing budget, the marketing team maybe are unclear about where they're going, and it's the same with the L&D team. They want to fix, but they don't know what they want to fix, so they don't know what they don't know, and your part of that is gaining that clarity with them.
Mm.
I used to be a competitive gamer a billion years ago, just after the Earth cooled. And one of the things we used to talk about some games was they were full of what we call busy work, where you run around pushing buttons for no apparent purpose. And
Yeah.
it strikes to me that in marketing, that can easily be the case. Well,
Yeah.
how do you help a business move from busy work marketing to actually knowing what matters?
Well, I think it's keeping in mind the outcome that you want. I think that's about knowing where you want to get to. So having the end in mind, essentially, and saying each marketing activity that you put in place needs to contribute to that outcome. And I think it's particularly pertinent I mean, I work with a lot of businesses where the sales cycle is quite long. It can take months, even years for that to come to fruition. So, quick sales in that sense are really difficult. They are there. There might well be opportunities and you have to look for them hard, but actually it's about building a plan for the long term with the idea that that a certain opportunity might land within 9 months, 12 months, even longer. So I think it is very much about keeping that end in mind and kind of almost working back from that so that you can point to any one marketing activity there, know exactly why it's there.
But it just seems to me that there's continuous, ever increasing urge from above to get that sale in quicker, that the sales cycle should ever be reducing. How do we get them to say, "Hold on a moment"? How can we
Well,
put a strategy in place?
yeah, and I think there's a real danger as well in that quick sales don't necessarily last. So you might say, well, that's great. I've got this contract in or this sales, but actually, are they the right clients? Because you're kind of pressing for a quick sale, are they actually the right kind of clients that you want that is then, aligned to where you can add most value as a business? So I think we have to be quite persistent about this and stand our ground and say, actually look for evidence in the business and say, well, of all the new clients that we've won, are they the right kind of clients? Are they staying? Does it contribute to things like customer lifetime value, for instance? So one of the ways in which you can try and get them to pause and think a bit longer term, I think, is by looking at those key metrics. It's not just about revenue per se, or revenue this quarter, or even revenue this year. It's what are we trying to build? We're trying to increase our customer lifetime value, for instance, as a key performance indicator. We want our customers to be so satisfied with the service that we provide and the products or services that we give them that they want to buy more. So are they buying more? And if they're not, if they're staying for, less time than you would hope, then something's wrong. You're not getting the right kind of client. So I think it's kind of coming back, if you need to evidence in the business, coming back to those metrics and possibly even, talk about the benefits of a long-term strategy, not just, and I know you need to look at the short term as well, but not just the short term, the benefits of that long-term brand building, that purpose, and it's talked to the longevity of the business.
Yeah, but it just seems to be businesses, Val, seems to be, "I want it now." They're not willing to put a strategy in place.
And, well, and I mean, I don't know, Valerie, what you have to say, but I think that can be evidenced in, I mean, you can get short-term gains, but do they last? It comes back to this kind of longevity.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, what do you think?
I think it's always a difficult one because you're looking
mm,
for some revenue to come through the door because times is difficult at the moment and has been all of last year. So it's lovely to land a new client. But then you've got to service that client and look after that client and maybe grow that client into the client that fits those purpose and those long-term goals and the initiatives.
mm,
Because sometimes people come in and they're not knowing quite what they want from you.
mm,
They've bought X, but actually they could buy a lot of other things, or
mm,
maybe they'll just move into a different part of the business that you haven't even started yet
mm,
because it's all embryonic. So
mm,
it is hard because if you have lots of clients coming in, you don't look after them, you're losing them off the back end, which
mm.
means, as you rightly said, Rachel, there's a reason for losing them off the back end.
Yeah. Yes, can you service the clients that you get in?
Yeah.
And I think it's not an either or. I think if there's a business need for short-term profits, short-term wins, then, there will be opportunities. And, they're often with those lowest hanging fruits are often with existing customers or kind of having a think about, what products and services could we offer that are easier for people to buy. So maybe not so expensive as our premium offers, but easier to buy, that actually would still be of value to them, that's still aligned with what we offer, but would generate quicker revenue. So they are there. So I think in a way, if the demand is for short-term wins, then that's fine. We can look at that and look at what opportunities there are, whilst not forgetting building the business for the long term as well. So I don't think it's an either or. I think that kind of dichotomy is a false one.
Yeah, but there is always, and maybe I'm being a bit mischievous, but I think it's important to have that tension. I think there is always a tension between wanting quick results and building something that actually lasts. And I think it needs to be a tension there. There needs
Yeah.
to be a push pull.
And
But
why do you think that it needs to be there?
because it creates, how should I put it, nervousness, which then creates, I think if you become too settled and if you become too relaxed, you
Right.
lose impetus and things stagnate. I
Yeah.
think if there's tension there, that creates the energy to move forward and try new
Right.
things and move
Yeah.
beyond your current viewpoint, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, so
Sure.
I guess it can add to the pace, can't it? So,
Mm.
which is why I think that having those two speeds could work really well. So you've got that in kind of immediate time horizon of the short term, looking to the next 3 or 6 months, or maybe the next 12 months. But you're saying, but we're not forgetting that longer term, and we want the short term to create pace and energy, but we want that on the way to the longer term, if you like.
But I just worry that sales managers, particularly, who've got a number on their head, and they're
Mm,
being told, "You must get that number in." So they're going around to their team. I used to be a commercial sales director of an IT company, and I always used to have my managing director saying, "Yeah, it's all very well you're talking about this strategy to bring in these guys by attending shows and building up confidence so they see our product set as the right ones to go towards. But I need something to come in now, quarter one. I can't
mm,
wait till quarter four. I need
mm.
something quarter one. What are you gonna do for me?" And I think there's an education piece in here so they can understand why building a strategy to get the longer term
Yeah.
wins works as well as the ones, the low hanging fruit.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, as I said, it's not an either or. And I think, that's part of the job of marketing, is to work with sales and say, how can we support you in that? You've got a number on your head and you need to deliver this in the next quarter. How can we help you? What opportunities are there with the contacts that you already have, the proposals that you've already got on the table, so we can support them on that. But I think you're right. I think there is an education piece with lots of business owners and MDs and CEOs to say, if what you want is a long-term healthy business, you can't just think about the next 3 or 6 months. I understand that's important for continuity of the business, sometimes for survival, but that won't make your business healthy long term.
Yeah. I went another podcast with a sales guy. Oh, I'm the marketing guy, he's the sales guy. And he wants to nickname the podcast Marketing Ruins Everything. He's always right. We've got enough information. When's the deal coming through? And I'm always the one to say, we need to make them more comfortable. We need them to feel that they're not just coming back to us for one sale, that they can rely on us to provide a whole plethora of things.
Yeah,
Well, that's back on the consultative side, isn't it?
yeah,
It's not transactional, it's consultative. And
Yeah.
then if you think about that, then actually the short and the long-term strategy should run parallel together. It's managing the different types of energy and the different types of input and making sure that they're both running at the same rate, which is marketing.
mm.
It's that strategy, it's that insight, it's that clarity, it's that focus and that alignment. And it's, well, how do you do it? I mean, it's a tough gig, Rachel.
It is a
Yeah.
tough gig, and I think it's fascinating, Gareth, that your friend said marketing ruins anything, because that
Mm.
to me talks of a slight maybe misconception of what marketing is. Because
Mhm.
my belief is that marketing is about, supporting a customer through to a decision with which they remain happy.
Yes.
So,
I think
how
most
can marketing
salespeople
ruin anything?
Well, because salespeople often see that it wastes time when they could be taking their potential clients out for a meal and getting them drunk. You know,
Well, and that's marketing. Well, maybe not the big getting drunk bit, but certainly wooing them and building relationships. That's absolutely what marketing is all about.
yeah. But if
Which is the B Corp side of it we were talking about earlier
oh yeah,
on.
do tell me more
That gives
about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, what was interesting, I've read a report recently. B Corp had done this report around. They were comparing the performance of B Corps, UK B Corps, with other um, SMEs, and basically what they found was that between 24 and 25, they B Corp saw a 20% on average percent turnover growth, and that was almost 7 times higher than the UK SMEs as a whole, which was 3%. So it's kind of materially different having that clear purpose, clear vision. So that clarity pays dividends in terms of growth.
Right.
So that. So I thought that was absolutely fascinating, and it replicated the
Mm.
results of a similar report the previous year, and it was the same the previous year as well. And
So
so
it's a cultural thing, is it?
it's a cultural thing, but it's also a rigor. It's not easy to get your B Corp accreditation, so it's to do with
Mm.
governance and the impact that you have on the environment, and so. But it's having that kind of strong, kind of social, environmental governance commitment.
Right.
And I think necessarily you need a clear purpose. You need to understand why your business is in business, and so there's a really strong kind of ethical, responsible way of running your business. And I think the results speak for itself. I mean, that's such a
Mm.
marked difference.
Mm.
All right. Well,
Long-term purpose.
Yeah.
quite right. Quite right. Well, before we wind this up for today, Val, do you have any last questions for our esteemed guest?
Well, I think the great picture that you've presented for marketing, and particularly for a fractional CMO, is well worth people understanding and looking into more. It is that awareness work that we need to do all of the time, really.
What
So thank you.
of the benefits of fractional? Yeah, absolutely, and kind of
And
seeing.
marketing.
And
Yeah.
marketing, yes. Yeah, definitely.
And dare I say it, being part of an organization like the Portfolio Executive means that we are trying to create that kite mark of perhaps people who can be relied on to help you lead your company through that fractional route. So you end up with the right support, the right marketing, not just any old. And I want to thank you so much for having helped me understand it a bit better, Rachel. It's been an education.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me. It's been a pleasure.
Not at all.
Thank you.
To all of you watching out there, please keep your feet on the ground, keep reaching for the stars, and please, in these troubled times, look after your mental health. We're here regularly, so do watch out for new podcast drops. And I believe, Rachel, you'll be coming back again, talk a little bit more about your CMO work as a fractional.
Indeed.
Well, look forward to that. Bye bye.